Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I felt inclined to do just one of these, sit down, you and me, we're gonna have a little chat. We're gonna have a little chat about where is a good place to meet Christian women as a Christian guy. This is the advice that the old man at the church or your pastor won't give you, and will actually be practical in helping you, okay, find a biblical spouse, build a biblical family. Now, I always precursor this by saying that if you're not in a good place in your life where you have a goal, you have a purpose that you're working towards, you're somewhat financially stable, you have a good faith life, you need to focus on those things first, okay? Women are not the end all be all, okay? Serving God, your purpose, okay? That's the primary thing in your life, and then building that family is what comes after when you build some alignment. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be perfect before you start trying to find your spouse or a girlfriend or something like that, okay? That's not what I'm saying, but you need to have some things in order before you start making that a more central priority in your life. So, with that being said, I'm going to dive into what are some of the best ways, or where are some of the best places that you can actually meet these Christian women. Well, I'm going to start off with number one that I think is pretty simple, but a lot of guys actually straight up overlook, which is church. It would be a good place to meet Christian women, believe it or not. Now, does that mean it's going to be easy or perfect like it's been in the past? No, absolutely not. There's going to be challenges there, just like with anything else or dating anywhere else. It's not going to be perfect. So what you're going to want to do is establish yourself somewhere in a church. You don't want to just be church hopping and hunting for girls at different churches. Okay, that comes across really weird. It can kind of become obvious what you're trying to do, but strategically place yourself in a church that aligns with your faith properly. They preach the word. It's conservative. It's not one of these crazy liberal progressive churches. It's not some crazy cult or something like that, but also has a decent amount of young people there. Okay, so you can strategically do this. Don't go to the church that is your denomination or lines up with your beliefs, but has like all the old people, right? You can spend some time scouting that when you move to a new area or you're in a certain area. So I'm not saying hop from church to church to find girls, but strategically pick a church that makes sense for where you're at in your life. So pick a church that maybe is closer to a college town or a youthful area that's likely to have more people your age. It's also better for you to be involved and build friends when there's people your age at the church as well. So I know this isn't always possible, and it seems to be a lot of old people attending church these days, although Gen Z seems to be reversing some of those trends, which is a really good sign. But you can be strategic about this, okay? Like if you're comparing two churches, maybe you attend both on different weekends, or they're both two churches in your area that align with you. Pick the one that is going to have more young people and have more young women there. That's just going to increase your chances. Dating really is a game of numbers. It's not what anyone says about oh, really, it's about all this game and all this stuff, which really that's all important, and you need to learn some of that. And I do teach some of that. But in reality, dating is kind of a game of numbers. It's about opportunity. It's about, your ability to, date and screen and go through women that fit your criteria. So putting yourself in a position where there are women there are young people there, would be a good place to start off in terms of picking a church. From there, usually most churches have youth groups and youth group situations where you can start interacting with them. They have young adult weekends. Most churches do this. And this is not a bad way to begin meeting women. Now, it's not going to be perfect. Sometimes the selection is not, up to your liking or standard. It just really depends. But I've known a lot of people who have met this way and have met really great spouses and ended up being really good matches. So it is possible. And I think it's an avenue that you should explore at least before resigning yourself to not looking there. Obviously, you can also just meet different people in the church, build a network, and then, people will start being recommended to you. You'll start having your friends come up to you and go, hey, we know this girl, she does this, you should meet her and things like that. And that's where I'm going to get to the second piece here, which is kind of attached to the church piece is another great way to meet other Christian women is through mutual friends. So this is easily accomplished when you're part of a church community and other men who likely have girlfriends and wives, and they have friends as well. And by the way, I've met women through all these different ways that I'm going to describe to you and started dating them. So It's not like I'm just making these up. Okay, I've actually done this. But through mutual friends is another good way, because you're going to have your personal guy friends who know you do some initial screening for you. And this is how a lot of people met their significant others probably the last 50 or 60 years, was through church or through friends and referrals. It was a way that people met. It was a form of matchmaking. And so because your guy friends know you well, they know your preferences, they know your tastes in women, they know, what you're looking for. They're going to help you and recommend other single women who might fit those criteria. And I'd say that is a good place to look. If you have good guy friends, they're going to try and, and hook you up with the best situation. So, trust that a little bit and give that a shot. That can be a good way to meet women. Lots of people meet this way. I know lots of people who've met and gotten married this way. So, at least to, get started off and maybe, start dating, have a girlfriend. Going through mutual friends is a great way to do that, especially if you make friends with guys who are not losers and they're also, into improving their lives, and they sort of have their lives together. It's likely they will have a girlfriend or a wife who knows other women who are single. And there's nothing more that church people like to do than matchmake. So, it's a good opportunity there to kind of and get to know women. The third one I'm going to say is that one that I think is not really the most savory, but I know people in my life where this has worked for them and it may work for you, and that is dating apps. You can try and find Christian women through dating apps. Now, I think this is the most unsavory way to do it. I think it's the most demoralizing way, in my opinion. And of course, when I talk about dating apps, I'm talking about in the United States. I'm assuming you're living in the United States right now. But I do know people who have met through apps such as Hinge is a common one. There are some Christian specific dating apps like Upward out there that I know, people meet through, and people, do establish relationships through that. I've had relationships through that app as well. So, they're worth a shot. Would I dump all your effort and energy into those apps and ignore the real life options? No, because using dating apps, which I've discussed on this channel, comes with a lot of challenges. It does some interesting pre-sorting to begin with that may not have you end up with the most desirable outcome. For a lot of women, the fact that you're on the dating app to begin with is almost a pre-screening for them. Almost no women actually want to be on a dating app. They they want to be approached in person, typically. So, but that's where a lot of the guys are going these days, and it can work. I think the dating app game is slowly kind of dying a little bit as it's gotten a bad reputation. I think 10 or 15 years ago, when it first came out, it was seen as an okay thing, but it's also facing some widespread acceptability as more people have met online. So it's kind of this double-edged sword, but it's a good way to kind of have passively in the background, some leads, some interactions with women. You learn how to text better. You learn how to flirt a little better on these apps as well. Yet, which, yes, it's okay for Christians to flirt in, a non sort of aggressively, non-biblical way. You can actually flirt in an honorable Christian way. There's actually a way to do that. So don't think you can't flirt or use dating apps. That's perfectly fine. As long as you keep your conduct, a-okay and biblical in biblical action, then it's fine. But using dating apps can be a bit degrading for people. They can feel like it's like they're shopping for a spouse or other people. And so I totally get that. It's not for everybody. But if you want to give it a shot and just sort of see what's out there, use it just in the background. Maybe you're looking for women to date in your real life, but you also have the apps just in case something comes up there. I think that's the best way to use them. I would not rely on them as your sole way to meet women, because the selection is just limited. It's very difficult unless you're an attractive guy to get the desirable matches, because girls are looking at your profile pictures. And I'll do a separate video on how to build out a good profile to attract godly women. Also, like, a lot of women will list themselves there as Christian on the apps, and then you come to meet them or chat with them and realize that they're not really serious about their faith. So, it can be a bit of a hit or miss in that case. And then what I would say the fourth best way to meet women is just out in real life on a daily basis. So just noticing and chatting people, going to places. Hopefully you go outdoors and you socialize, which would be really, really good. And just try to strike up conversations or interact with them in person. And I know this is one that guys are kind of scared of, and they're scared about the consequences and repercussions, so that's why I put it lower on the list. But this does work for some guys. They are still out there, they're still talking to women, they're still meeting them this way, so it does still happen. Now, how do we force multiply all these things, in my opinion? Well, I do, for a lot of Christian men, advocate expanding your horizons and dating abroad to some degree. Now, if you don't want to do that, the first four I mentioned, can be very useful for you. But what if you weren't just looking at your area or your state, but you were thinking more in terms of, going abroad and finding women there that are more traditional, might align with your values more. There might be more women that fit that criteria for you. Well, I have a ton of videos on how to begin dating abroad and how to look into that living abroad, taking advantage of the American dollar and living a more free life where you're able to kind of control your own destiny. You're not a slave to a job. I would recommend checking out those videos there. But traveling some places that interest you, using the dating apps and your connections there to start meeting women who are probably more traditional and probably fit what you're looking for in a Christian biblical wife more, may be a good option for you as well. So I would check out that playlist over there if you want to learn more about that. But that's a quick video of what I would say the top 4 or 5 ways to meet a girl, start dating a Christian girl, just get started somewhere. That's what I would recommend. If there's any other methods I missed, leave it in a comment down below. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you so much for watching. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time.